to give you guys each a chance to get acquainted, because I'm not sure that everyone maybe knows you, Michael, but probably knows of you, and a big part of why we wanted to have you on today's podcast. How things been down south there?
It's been pretty interesting,
Okay.
no doubt about it. Some interesting times to navigate through, and with what we're doing, we're really trying to expand the whole systemic process, not just our daily body shop operations, but trying to you know pull into pull into it not only calibration but the whole claim settling piece, which
Yeah,
is
yeah,
always a lot of
yeah.
fun in the U.S.
Yeah, I think it's a big part of why we're excited about today's session. Just to unpack some things, I think that aren't always discussed at that level. Like you say, lots has happened up in Canada, and obviously, I know for sure in the USA, Michael. Really, what we're excited about is we've been covering this podcast for now just over a year with all kinds of topics from our perspective as shop owners, but obviously now having you on this session will get some input from your end. So we're going to jump right into it, guys, with some intros first, because again, really excited to cover whatever comes out of this podcast. As I noted in the reminder, it's unscripted. I think this podcast came about over a year ago. No lie, out of the uh, autopsy of a bad repair. Um, I know Michael, me and Ryan chatted after he had saw that, and then I was driving back from SAR in Saskatchewan, and man, we were just raving and raging about the industry after we aired that one. So I'm glad we finally pulled this one off. If you don't mind, Norm, Joel, and Todd, to just share a quick brief of who you are, what your role is, where you're located, and then we'll ask Michael to do an intro on himself as well.
Sure, I'll jump in and get it started. I'm Joel Deshane, owner and partner with CSN JD Collision in Cold Lake and Bonnyville. We also own a towing business, Collision Towing, in the same communities, and have recently started a mechanic shop called J Drive. And we are hoping to get better in specializing in calibrations and stuff like that. So, having fun in that environment right now. There's a lot of things that aren't apparent that become clearly apparent once you start diving into it more. So
Thanks,
passing it to Norm or Todd.
So I'm Norm Bruno, owner, general manager, St. Cloud Autobody. Been in the industry for almost 30 years now. Um, yeah, I'm also an active member of our Automotive Trades Association. Um, yeah, just happy to be here.
Thanks, Norm.
Todd Regier from Prestige Collision and Glass in Central Okanagan in British Columbia. We have 3 locations. I actually started as a Red Seal technician in paint and body, and then my brother and I got into business, 22 years ago now. We've grown from a 1-man or 1.5-man shop to, I think we got 48 employees right now. Grown quite a bit and hoping to keep going.
Awesome. Thanks, Todd. And Michael, thanks for joining us. If you wouldn't mind, just a kind of a brief current state where you're at and what brought you to where you are today. It'd be great to hear.
Yeah. Well, I appreciate
being here. Look forward to the discussions, but I'm a lifer. It's the only industry I've ever been involved in. Grandfather took us into the automotive industry in '46. Dad took us into collision repair in the '60s. I got involved full time in the '80s. We were a single location, grew it to four over the course of the next 15 years, and and then got caught up in that first wave of consolidation in the late '90s, and we were acquired by Sterling Autobody Centers back there in '99, and we were the first market that Sterling had acquired. Before that, it was all single store acquisition. So we were the first market. I became the Ohio regional director, which was basically our stores. And we added a fifth store down in Akron right away. And so I managed the market for a couple of years. And then they asked me to take over uh, the vice president of operations position, the COO position. We were 39 stores in 8 markets at that point, and that was an interesting career turn. And Yeah, so I took on that position reluctantly, had no idea what I was getting into. And then shortly after that, the company was acquired by Allstate. So we had the taboo relationship going on. And I always tell the story, and it's the truth, is that my family business and Allstate had a very mutual relationship, just couldn't stand each other. And they chose not to do business with us. We chose not to do business with them, and everything was just fine. And now all of a sudden, I'm running a wholly owned subsidiary of Allstate. Um, and but it was a cool experience because you got to understand really what gave birth to that whole relationship and them thinking a single source of business and what could be done there. Uh, Having the resources to be able to grow a network was an interesting experience. We grew from 39 stores into 65 or 66 when I left. It was because I was an officer of Sterling, I was brought in at the director level of Allstate. So I got to really get to understand what the inner thinkings of a risk management company, which was that was worth the education by itself. Um, but I left there in late '04. Really have no idea what I was going to do next. But it had gone from what we and my team was promised early on an industry changing event to really a price and severity control event. And so it really changed the whole game and changed what we were there for. Certainly changed what I was there for. I had no interest in that. But learned lean manufacturing principles. Sterling had a couple of just incredible lean guys and gals. And so I got really intrigued and just got obsessed with learning more about what a process-centered environment was about, and learning, really the forms of waste that you don't see on a daily basis that are right in front of you. And left that position, spent a year as Sherwin's lead consultant in designing DCR. And DCR was first to design on basically a napkin and paper. And one of the well-known shop design artists in our industry in the U.S. and I worked closely together, and then put together the first layout and design and flow of a DCR shop. We opened it in '05. We are now 6 stores that we own and operate, and then we have 3 that we license, which is just kind of a franchise-like model. We opened our second calibration center recently, which, yeah, you're right, that's a whole new different business. And really trying to tie it all together with our software that we've developed in-house, because we're an out-of-network repair, and I'm looking forward to talking more about how insurance relationship goes down in Canada. But we're an out-of-network. We're not DRP for anyone. Um, because of what we believe and the way we believe the car should be repaired. At the same time, it creates that settlement challenges.
Mhm.
So our software is designed to really help in that process and to create complete transparency and trusted transparency. And it's been an interesting road so far.
Very cool. Yeah, that's what I'm loving about this kind of unscripted chat. We're going to get into a lot of cool things and a lot of what you mentioned, Michael, we've been talking about over the past year amongst us. So it's really cool to get another perspective. I'll throw in my connection, I guess, with everyone on this call. 2000, I started at Concourse, and through those first 5 years, worked my way up through the ranks, helping Ken Friesen build his business. And 2005 is when we did our rip the band-aid off, switch to lean. And prior to that, meeting both Michael and John and Brad, those guys were fundamental in coming up, Michael, as you know, and helping us not just understand it, but see it in real life and start our own journey, if you will. But '06, I think, or possibly '07 is when I got the opportunity to go down and see that first facility that you built and just see it in action. It was a breath of fresh air to know that, hey, this is possible. And yeah, it was inspiring. You guys obviously were blazing new trails already back then. So I think perhaps today we're looking forward to hearing more about what is going down, in your business there, but what you see happening in the U.S. Because I think it maybe even by population or legislature, I don't know. I think you guys are always a slight, curve ahead on some things, and maybe we'll find some things that we're doing in Canada that would help bring some perspective to the whole industry. So with that, guys, I just want to see what it is you have for and whether it's an outcome or a single key question coming into this call from each of you, Norm, Jojo, and Todd, but as well as Michael, is there something you want to make sure we cover so we can all walk away from this chat knowing we at least took something away? Anyone can go first.
Well, I was kind of checking out your collision clarity, and it just boggles the mind, hearing you say, you're part of something that became more insurance driven and therefore you got out of it because it didn't meet your values anymore. And here we have a piece of software that basically allows everything to be open and honest right from the beginning. And yet it seems like you're having challenges getting adoption from all sides. Um, how telling is that about the old style of doing things within the industry that's just keeping everybody from being more profitable?
Yeah, great question. And you, the the point that I was hoping that we could talk about is related, and that's how sustainable is our industry right now? How really sustainable is it? And we've had some pretty interesting discussions with even like the folks at Carfax. Carfax is popular in Canada, but you know, everyone in the U.S. But the vast majority have the same impression of Carfax, and that's if it's got an accident, the vehicle has an accident report, then everyone's like, "Whoa, I don't know if I want that." And it's I do agree with some that like the likes of a Carfax and where they're pulling in for their information from, that's got to really maintain a level of integrity. At the same time, as an industry, we've kind of earned that reputation that if a car's got an accident report on it, meaning it was repaired, that it probably wasn't repaired correctly. And how is that sustainable? It's just, gone are the days where you laughed at the car going down the road because the quarter panel was waving at you and the color didn't match or that type of thing. And now we're seeing what look like actually pretty nice looking repairs, good color matches, even some panel alignment that looks pretty good. When you peel back that onion, and you've got missing welds, improper welds, lack of corrosion protection. You don't have verification of structural measurements. You don't have a certificate of calibration. all that stuff that now is really meaningful, is not there. It's just with it, you can't tell, that repair truly by just first glance.
Yeah. And that was sorry, Mike, I was gonna say that was the autopsy of the bad repair that got you all fired up when you called me on the road and said, "What's going on? It's happening there too." So
Yeah.
thanks.
It, it's just crazy. And, to, was the point we were talking about before with the software, um, Lenny and I talked about this because patience is not my greatest suit at all. I'm just not patient. My team will tell you that. It's like we have another little side business up in Western New York by our lake house that is a general store and bait and tackle. And whenever I'm getting impatient, my team says, "Hey, you need to go scoop some minnows or something. You need to get out of
Totally. Go settle down.
here." But we've been at this development and using our own software in house for 5 years. And, I thought the industry was ready for it 4.5 years ago. And that was the farthest thing from the truth. And now we're finally getting some traction where we're starting to expand outside of our small network of stores into other organizations that are looking for that uh, level of documentation. Now we're starting to get some traction with some small insurers that are realizing, I don't need to do anything else. I just need that link. And if I have questions, I can ask questions. And if I need verification, I can get verification. The software really tells a story. So, the unfortunate thing is in the US, you've got, the top five insurers make up, 65% of the cars on the road or 70% of the cars on the road. And those are the ones that are the toughest to move, just, the State Farms and the Allstates and Progressives of the world and the Geicos of the world. Those are the ones that are tough to really move off of, what they feel has done them right in the past.
That's awesome. And Joe, maybe what I heard you kind of heading to is also the what I'd call the control piece that we all know what a properly repaired vehicle looks like, and at least we should be if we're in the business of repairing cars. But um, wouldn't that be great to have a piece of software that you can show your client and be it the person paying the bill, insurance, and the future owner of that vehicle, almost the history of that, so that they can have confidence in it. But is that even possible to fix a car properly because of some of the decisions being made on how cars are
Yeah,
fixed?
yeah, and that, you look at a platform like this, and you're like, at the end of the day, we're trying to get rid of middlemen. Middlemen are like the profit killers for everybody. And if the middleman is literally documentation and a storyboard, how much more efficient can everybody be? And how many less arguments can we have? And can we just fix cars, please? Because that's really what we're good at doing. Um, but no, there's that hurdle and this rule for that company and this rule for that company, and it's just an administrative nightmare that now our people are not working on being better. They're working on remembering what steps to take for whatever they're working on. But like, this is a no-brainer if we want to do business in the right way, because it's so, like, I would go so far as to have it available where anytime you're buying a vehicle, you can search up a VIN number, and if it's been repaired, you can see the
You have
pictures. And it's
full
like,
repair reports. Yeah. The
like
question is like,
nobody's
who does it
lying.
matter to? Right? Like, I mean, it matters to us, but does it matter to anybody else? Does it matter to the payer? Does it matter to the buyer? I mean, dealerships here, all accidents are bad, and insurance company, all costs are bad. And, so it's like, it's just, we're caught in the middle of this whole thing.
And
Yeah,
we're
it's
judging
interesting. About a year ago, I spoke to one of the U.S.'s largest peer groups, like probably a peer group that you're all familiar with. And, you know, 20 or 25 organizations, a lot of them at MSOs and fairly large independent MSOs. And I forget what the number, but it was a pretty large number that the whole group represented as far as collision repair sales. And we presented Clarity to them. And there was a lot of great feedback, but one operator mentioned this, and a couple other operators said, "Yeah, I know where you're coming from." He says, "Boy, I don't know if my shops are ready for that level of transparency." And it wasn't that I don't. It wasn't. I firmly believe that they were intentionally doing anything.
Yeah.
They just didn't have the confidence in their current process that it had a consistent outcome.
Yeah, that's a good point. Because when we aired that autopsy of a bad repair, what I thought was going to send, a message in the industry that there are shops out there that are not doing great work, period. Most people took it as, uh-oh, what's happening in our own shop and do we know? So, not that that's a bad thing. It turned into a great realization that we need to take a look at our own efforts and our own outcomes before we, start truly saying that, yeah, indeed, we are fixing them properly. And um, I know that everyone on this call is in a position now where they can confidently say they are fixing their vehicles properly. I've checked that out as well. But I would also ask, each of you, and Michael included, is, what does that mean internally to have a system that demands quality repair? I think is where Joel was going with it, because that's our responsibility and what we obviously want. And then the second piece to that is, what is it doing to protect you as a shop owner as the car leaves the property? So those are the two things I think that might help answer Joel's final piece.
Yep.
Yeah, when you think about it, if we had an industry that committed to a level of transparency that truly allowed you to understand what was done to the vehicle, and like was mentioned before, you had that stayed with that serial number for its life, that you can go in and always see the history in detail of the vehicle, and we were forced to a level of transparency. It really actually fixes a lot. Number one, you don't have
Yes.
the argument anymore about flat rate versus hourly, whatever, because transparency doesn't much care, right? It just cares you fix the car right. And you lose, the argument that whether you should be an in-network or out of network or DRP or not. I'm not sure what they call the network shops in Canada, but it takes that argument away because transparency doesn't care how you get paid. It just cares that you were forthright and when you did the repair, you were willing to document it to a very detailed degree so that that customer and consumer confidence of getting back in the vehicle and understanding that it's going to function the way it was designed is there. And I'm just passionate about we have to change completely from, growing up in the business, growing, growing up in the business, it was just that such a mistrust that you hid things from, the adjusters come in and vice versa. They hid some of the rules and it was a bunch of manipulation and we're beyond that. And we have to become beyond that as an industry to be sustainable.
That's awesome. It's great. I think we'll keep going with that. Thanks, Joel. It was a great piece to throw in. Maybe Norm or Todd, something that you wanted to jump into in this podcast?
I think Michael just hit the nail on the head for me is what does sustainability look like for us moving forward? That I just agree that it's like we got to put the fire out. Like there's the industry is just going down in a burning ball of fire, and you're seeing the evidence with insurance companies writing cars off like crazy because they just don't want the exposure to the liability or whatever the reasons that they use to justify. And I just, like, I think our discussion should definitely hit on that. Like, what does sustainability look like, and what is transparency's role in that?
Think
Because I
about
got
the
to tell you,
Yeah,
pre-owned
that's
market.
looking at a Carfax, like you say, I mean, if you see um like a large deck or a large accident on a car, like everybody on here knows that I hit a deer last spring in my wife's car. And we wrestled with whether to fix it. 'Cause, the insurance company was like, well, we could go either way. It's an expensive car to fix. And we wrestled with it, and ultimately it came down to she wanted the car back, and I was like, well, yeah, I guess we'll fix it. But now, knowing that I have this gigantic declaration on my own car, well, do I know what we did? Is it documented? Yes, all those things. But now we're essentially, and we're facing this, that like the car's not worth as much as it was. That's the end of the discussion. No matter how good we were, no matter how, it just didn't matter. It doesn't matter to anybody. So, it's like, to me, I think, like, being very objective, we should have just let them take the car. But, the emotional part of that decision wasn't quite as easy to navigate. But, if I was John Q, advising a customer, or an insured, I'd probably say take the money and run, because, like, right, what are your options? Because it doesn't seem to matter to anybody how transparent or how accurate we are, and how, I mean, whether it's calibrations or OEM repair procedures or quality parts or what, it doesn't matter. So,
And the other part to add to that is whether diminished value is even an option in your territory,
There it is.
right?
I was waiting. I was waiting for that word.
you got it, Joel.
Yeah,
It's not. Yeah,
you,
right.
you,
Yeah.
you were not made whole.
Yeah.
I absolutely not.
So we'll go there for a few minutes, because that could be a podcast on its own.
Mhm.
Michael, is it true diminished value is a real thing and is happening in certain areas of the U.S. or all over the U.S.? As far as I know, in Canada, it's not diminished value. As far as I can tell, all I've heard of horror stories is it's just done through bodily injury. That's how you get your compensation. But is the U.S. a different thing?
Yeah, we're starting to see more and more of that, and I think it's a result of, because the insurers are getting so challenging, and short pay is becoming so common in the U.S., especially if
Mhm.
you're on a network, you're certified repair, you can almost guarantee a short pay. And so yeah, I think that because of that, because of how difficult the insurers are are being, that people are looking for other avenues to help them get reimbursed. And so we're starting to hear more and more diminished value facilitators, if you will, starting to crop up, where you're able to refer somebody to two or three people that'll help them with that claim. Uh, and we've had people had success, and I tell you, this is an interesting story, and this is unfortunately, it was my wife, and she wasn't willing to move forward, but she's a Lexus driver, and she had gotten a new RX, and it was less than 2 weeks old, and she was going she was stopping at the hospital, I think, to visit something relative, whatever, and literally the complete side of her vehicle got swiped.
Ugh.
And the car that swiped it parked right next to her. Right. And it happened to be an elderly lady that just didn't even realize it, but creased the entire side of the car. Anyway, so there was $6,000 damage on the vehicle, and it being brand new like that. I'm like, you know what? I want to understand what this diminished value claim would look like. So we got engaged with it, and it would have reimbursed uh, for that diminished value, except for you have to send some pretty strong letters to the responsible party,
Hmm.
basically threatening them that you're going to sue them for that diminished value, so that then they call their policy, they call their carrier saying, "Hey, wait a minute, you're supposed to indemnify me," and get them engaged that way. And then there are provisions in a lot of the policies for diminished value, but it's something that's just starting. We're just starting to hear more and more about. Like I said, I think it's just people are scratching to try and figure out how to continue to avoid the short pays. Yeah, question I had in Canada: do you have a lot of people that have to contribute beyond their deductible uh, on short pays, or how does that work?
Don't get me started. Somebody else go.
Yeah. At times, yes, no, depends on the relationships we're carrying at the time. Um, so yeah. But I'm in a private industry, insurance industry in our province of Alberta, whereas Norm and Todd here are more into the government public insurance there.
Yeah, it's a little bit of a different animal in the public market, but it's very interesting to hear some of these things. I often feel that in the public market we have the benefit, and yes, definitely a benefit of being behind sometimes, because we get to see how things unfold in other markets and we have the opportunity to brace for it, whether it's a good change or a bad change. We always seem to be lagging a little bit behind. So that's why I love these conversations. And some of these things that you say, Michael, are becoming, I don't know if common practice, but becoming more and more apparent in the States. I mean, there's no sign of that here in Manitoba.
Yeah. Yeah, and just for context, there's certain provinces, be it BC where Todd is, Manitoba where Norm is, where there's a very heavy government insurance in place. So it's not that you can't have people in those provinces with private insurance, like an Intact or whatever. That's where Joe's world, where it's mostly all private. And then it kind of hits or misses across Canada to the east. But it opens up an interesting conversation about what's actually allowed, even if you're, forget even trying to get creative, just trying to get paid. And we've talked about it in a past podcast about, just making sure, first of all, that you're doing proper check-in and repair planning so that when it does get to actually asking for what you should get paid, are you even asking that? And that's one of the big things that I'm certain will come up a little later in this chat is, what are shops not doing or leaving on the table or doing improperly what they should be doing versus what now they're saying they're not getting paid for or short paid on. But then we've also seen some interesting things like analyzing back to just the estimating systems. Are we getting paid enough for even things like materials or labor? So I would say, if anything, right now, there is a few out there that are really taking a serious look at, are we even properly asking for all of it? Are we getting, proper things laid out in mathematics, even just on the actual repair bill? So, but beyond that, there's no, I think maybe, guys, you could say the odd shop has said to a customer, look, the insurance is going to put aftermarket parts on your car. If you want to pay the difference, you can put OEMs on. It can open up a tricky conversation between the owner and their insurance provider, but I can't say it goes a whole lot past that right now up in Canada.
How do materials typically get reimbursed in Canada? With the calculator or just an hourly formula?
Formula in our market.
Yeah, same here. Yeah, same.
We're an hourly. However, we have implemented, we track everything that we use, and then if the hourly isn't enough, we are adding an extra invoice for materials and markup.
Yeah, they are starting to break some of those things out. A couple of years ago, foams, adhesives got broken out. So now we have a full kit or a half kit, depending on the repair. I was just at the spring conference in Saskatchewan. They just broke seam sealer out of shop materials now as well.
Yeah, that's
Seam
good.
sealers here are still in shop materials. So there is some progress in that sense.
Interesting. And so, yeah, with paint materials or that really crazy toner that no one knows about, like Joel said, you're doing what you need to do to really check that you're not leaving that on the table. We also, I guess, over the years have seen that the OEM stamped materials, things that you cannot actually get aftermarket, would still be billed as a part. So there could be a special seam sealer that a Volkswagen requires that only you can get through them. But again, beyond that, most of it's by a rate, calculated rate. Todd, did that kind of answer what you had brought forward, or did you
Sort
have
of,
anything
yeah. I
else
mean, no, I
to
mean,
clarify?
yeah. I think it's just a discussion piece. It's like, like really, what does sustainability look like for the industry moving forward? And I mean, I'm not just talking about material, obviously. You know, when you're up against, you know, what risk mitigators and financial there who are trying to avoid financial exposure. And this, you know, things like the sort of doom and gloom of Carfax reports, and you know, like what does it really look like for us?
Well, I think you just hit it there on the backside of the repair is the liability,
Right,
right?
exactly.
And
Yeah,
so, Michael, I know we hear murmurs. At least I don't follow a whole lot of it, but we see once in a while a really nasty story about a vehicle repair that did not hold up well afterwards, and now it's, it's a bloodbath, right? For
yeah.
who's responsible. He might have froze there. You guys also?
My-
Or he's really
He's
thinking
really
about
thinking.
it.
he's
Yeah.
really, oh,
Oh,
and he's out.
okay.
Ahead.
That's
That's
how
how
far
far
ahead
ahead
they
of us
are.
they are.
That's
He knew what I
right.
was going to say. He didn't like it. He
He was
got
like,
out.
I better get out of here.
And cut transmission. Yeah.
I
See,
just
they're so far ahead of us in our public insurance markets.
Yeah. Yeah,
maybe
exactly.
maybe not an internet infrastructure.
Oh, well,
Ah.
it is possible. I, my goodness.
This is the part of the podcast where we make all the like American jokes while he can't pick on us type thing, or
Hey, if you got one, go nuts.
I don't really have one. Sorry, guys. I'm not, I'm
no.
gonna be a
Okay.
Kind of
letdown
All
feeling
on
right.
that one.
I'm still defeated from the whole hockey thing, so I
Oh,
got
are
nothing.
Yeah.
you?
Like,
Fair enough.
yeah,
Well,
Okay.
Norm, as we're waiting for, there
There he
we
is.
got him
Don't
back.
don't bring
Right.
up the hockey team conversation.
Oh, uh-oh.
But
yeah.
they
Okay.
are, Michael. Sorry, Nam. Did you recall again the question?
Which question about the hockey,
No.
international hockey situation, or okay,
I'm
good.
not sure
I
where
was
I got
hoping we
bounced out, but that's where I came back in.
right. Your ears were ringing, so you came right back
Yeah,
in.
yeah, totally.
No, you know, as far as outcomes and questions, I mean, this is sometimes you don't know what you don't know, and for me, there's a lot that I don't know. So just starting the conversation and seeing where it leads is very interesting. And Todd, Joel, and Lenny have done a great job of asking those questions. And you know, some of the things I'm curious about, and I think a lot of shop owners, just on a very surface level, just curious how things work, right? Even when we were talking about shop materials and things like that, I'm always curious, you know, what have other markets done to try to make sure that they were being compensated properly, right? I mean, let's not forget there was a time where we didn't get paid for blends. We didn't get paid to remove R&I trim and things like that. And our industry has come such a long ways. And I feel like in many ways that started in the private market. So maybe what I'm hoping for is a gleam of hope from you, Michael, and some of the things that private insurers are starting to accept as, yes, we have to pay for these things. These are the things that lead to a proper repair, and we're hoping to see a flow of that up here in the north.
Yeah, where we see as I mentioned, where we see the biggest challenges are the companies that still insist on sending out that field adjuster, and that's what drives me, absolutely crazy because the one location that I'm at right now, we carry 20 certifications. So we're certified in every brand that Classic Auto Group sells, plus Rivian and Lucid on top of it. And we constantly have people out training, on site, off site, all the time. And each one of the manufacturers, it seems, especially the specialty vehicles, have their certified repair planner or certified blueprinter, that type of thing. And they'll spend, I marvel now at the amount of time that we spend repair planning, and organizing fasteners and hardware and photos and everything that we do that was the old estimating when I was growing up, and now we call repair planning, and it's a lot of research and it's a lot of reading. And so they'll spend all this time orchestrating a well-defined plan with all the documentation, and yet an insurer will send out an adjuster with no education, not even ICAR training, and they're going to write it. They're going to in the policy who's expected to get a fair settlement. How, how's that possible? You know, and I even had a conversation with the supervisors from one of our top insurer in the U.S. And I said, Ryan, I said, that Lucid right there, the front end damage. I said, I'll run an estimate on that all day long, probably as fast as just about anyone, I believe. But it's going to be a meaningless, worthless estimate. You asked me to put a repair plan together for that Lucid, and I don't possess the same level of education that some of our certified Lucid estimators or repair planners do. That's their job. You know, if you're asking me to put together a repair plan to make sure that I've covered everything
It's
that
a
is
huge
required
job.
by the manufacturer, not me, and that's not you either. So why are we forcing this delay and friction and all of this by you sending your representative out and write it? And I don't have a problem with us discussing this. I don't have a problem with negotiating it. But let's negotiate off of a repair plan that was written by a certified
Yeah.
repair planner for that manufacturer. I think drives me crazy. So we're seeing that from the big carriers that still insist that. At the other side of it, we're seeing great hope, where we have some of the second, uh, third tier insurers that literally will say, "Send me the link."
Gotcha.
Call back. They may ask for an adjustment here or there. Can you give us $2 break on a labor rate, whatever. We'll decide if we're going to do that or not. Send them back the corrected uh, link, and then get back a confirmation of payment. And it's like, man, this is exactly the way it's supposed to work. And the cycle time is less than half of of the cars that are
Yeah.
being forged through a carrier that is stuck in a 20-year-old way of doing things. It just, so that gives me hope because I mean, candidly, it's frustrating. Some days it's frustrating to see what our people go through,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah. I'll jump in there on the world I got to be uh, experiment in, and then now start our company going out and teaching this was what we realized. And this, I want to make very clear, we have very talented technicians out there and very eager young people who want to learn it. But repairing the vehicle or even taking a vehicle apart, that's part of a repair. But to actually understand what repair planning is, most people, including technicians, don't actually understand it. It's its own science. It's its own methodology and discipline. And that has to start with the business saying we're not going backwards, pre-ordering parts off of what we call was the shit sheet, that sheet that somebody came in and no one used. They wipe your butt with it. It was just a fictional gauge. It meant nothing until we actually bring it in and just thoroughly dismantle this. But we follow a process to do that. A big aha for us was nobody knew how. We just assumed they should know because they're taking cars apart. They should know to lay everything out in like an operating table and separate the good from the bad and then work with whoever can get that information into the computer and research it and figure out the correct part. You know, that clip that has 5 different names, like gusset, retainer, and grommet, and a diagram that a 5-year-old drew. And now we're going to send that over to our vendor and hope that they get it right. You know, so I love to hear, Michael, that there's hope, because we still see probably a good, guys, help me out, less than 5% of the industry, at least here in Canada, just embracing repair planning. I wish I was wrong, but I grew up in a bubble at Concourse, and when I left, and this is no smite on anyone, no one gets it. No one truly understands what it could do in the end if you just begin the next step. There's very few. All the guys on this call, they get it, but they will all share stories of how long it took to get it right, and that you are only as good as your next repair plan.
I would not say took. I would say continues to take.
Continue. Yeah.
There.
Yeah,
100%.
well, exactly. And it's easy to see where people get discouraged, because to Michael's point, you could be striving to be the best. You could be doing all these things in your business to improve your process. But I think shop owners sometimes feel like they're anchored by this 20-year-old process from that provider, that carrier, like you said. And, you know, they do all the right things, and then when they get to the end, it's, you know, they don't get the benefits of it because it gets flipped over to an insurance process that is 20 years old. And then people throw their arms up and say, why did I do all this if no one else is willing to change? Right. So you can see how people get discouraged. But out of everything you said, Michael, I heard there's a chance, so that's good enough for this guy. And so that's, you know, that's going to keep me going for another year at least. So we're going to.
It keeps me going, Norm, as well. You know, I just like, man, this mission's not over.
No.
You know, it'd been easy, you know, to sell the business and just go scoop minnows. You know, we're here to really help our industry change. I truly believe that, and we have to lead it. And sometimes lead and change, not sometimes, most of the time, is not the greenest path. You know, I have friends in the industry far more profitable than we are, doing things in a traditional way, dispatching work to commission-based technicians, and, you know, uh, according to DRP world. And it works, you know, and that's part of the challenge, because that's still from a profitability standpoint, a very viable model. And, you know, every time we think that we're around the corner, and I believe that I believe we are now as an industry, from really some pretty awful exposure as far as repairs. You know, it seems like we find ourselves, you know, a couple more years down the road, nothing happened yet. But I do believe, and I am hearing rumbling in the U.S. about some lawsuits that are going on, that involve, you know, a current accident, and chasing the history of that vehicle to see if um, the repairs that were done prior to it aided in any way to the injury or to the accident. You know, you look at 10 years from now, I think the U.S., the average car on the road is about 11 and a half years old, something like that. But 10 years from now, you know, the average technology on the road will largely be what the most advanced technology is that we have today. So that's going to be the average, plus everything that improves from now through the next 10 years. And can you imagine if we don't come up with a way to validate a proper repair? I'm hearing some buzzing in the U.S. about dealers looking to resell branded title cars.
Well, I will say this, when it comes to the US market, you know, consumer choice trumps everything, does it not? So, like, who's to say that I can't take my car and get it repaired at a less than perfectly documented location? And I have that right. That's my car. I can do what I want. Um, However, I think it would be nice that it was documented and it was chosen to be repaired this way. So buyer beware, this is what you get.
Well,
Um,
Yeah, we run into that all the time, Joel, where you have a customer saying, you know what, I'm not worried about calibration. Don't worry about.
Yeah.
I'm not worried. I'm not
Yeah.
worried. Just wait a minute. Wait a minute. We have to be.
Yeah.
You know, your blind spot monitor is not working, and you wipe out the cyclist next to you. You know, that's our and part of our responsibility to make sure
Yeah.
the car goes back on the road safe. The years to come are going to be interesting, but I do believe there's great hope and transparency, and we've got to adopt that world. I mean, think about it. Competing in a transparent world would be a heck of a lot more fun than the world that we compete in today.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
Love it.
agree with that.
It forces everyone to live up to the expectation, and you're accountable to it, and it's just clear. It's
Maybe not perfect, but a
Yeah.
long way from where we are today.
Well, I'll throw this piece in, and then Michael, if there's anything that you want to inquire with us, I love drawing it out because this whole podcast was made to just get shop owners talking. Unfortunately, we often live on our own island, thinking that we're stuck in the problems we have, and that's our hope. We share often in our alignment sessions that we bring to our clients that the only way you can hold somebody accountable is if you actually have their permission. Meaning it has to be clear up front that I need you to do this. This is what it looks like. Do you understand that? And are you willing to accept it? And if the answer is yes, that's accountability. But how often are we trying to hold somebody accountable, be it ourselves or our employees or us being asked to be held accountable when there's actually no clarity or, as you say, transparency around it? Well, that's not accountability anymore. That's just abuse of power in my mind. So, um, Michael, is there again anything you could share that you're seeing, be it in your own business or your industry, that you just know to be clear that if you're not doing these things, you need to change your mindset from an internal perspective? And then finally, is there anything you have of us that you'd love to know that might differ? So,
Yeah. Well, I mean, again, with documentation and being completely transparent, I'm passionate about that. I think that's something that our industry has to adopt. I think we'll see that adoption coming over the course of the next few years. You know, when you think about it, everybody in the industry benefits from a transparent world. Right? First of all, the vehicle owner, operator, driver, they get back into the vehicle safe for repair. Manufacturers having their brand represented correctly through a safe and proper repair. That carrier is now paying the correct price for the right repair. And although they may perceive that they're going to pay more, are they really paying more for number one, if they've got the documentation and they've got to go through the subrogation process, and they're going to get reimbursed at a much higher rate than number one. And number two, it should be number one on their list, is that in most cases, they're going to continue to insure that vehicle.
right.
If
Good
I'm
point.
going to insure, I want to make sure it's going back on the road correctly, because these systems aren't all just convenient systems or safety systems. So it could have really some catastrophic impact if we don't really get our act together and start to be transparent, force the documentation, um, make the whole process more streamlined, better customer experience, cars fixed correctly, and carriers paying the right price. A question that I had, the not so much the advantages or disadvantages, but the differences that you experience in working with government insurance versus private.
There,
I
that was
mean,
your cue,
y-
Norman Todd.
yeah, no,
Yeah, I just turned
I
off
got
my
it.
mute there. I mean, are we doing a whole other podcast
Yeah,
or is
absolutely. You
Uh,
this?
wanna let's start over.
you
All
actually
right,
have about
let's
a minute
go.
to summarize it, so you're good.
Yeah, no, I'll be honest, there is some benefits. Oh man, where do I even start? I mean, there is some some certainty in running a business in a market like this, where you're not necessarily playing this whole other game with each insurer, having to try to make sure that you stay at the top of the list for this one, top of the list for that one. The way it works in our market is MPI, our public insurer, is not allowed to direct customers to any shops. They provide the insurance. The customer can take it wherever they want to an accredited facility. So in that sense, it removes a certain layer of it's not even really it is competition, but it's different in that sense, right? So now you're not having to fight that whole fight. You're just having to be compete for that customer just with the other shop straight up, right? It's your customer service, your process, your repairs, your all this stuff, and they will come to you. They're not going to come to you because someone told them there was going to be repercussions if they didn't. So there is a sense of certainty that comes with that when when a customer shows up at your door. It's not, they don't really want to be here. They're here because they have to be here. It's like, no, they chose to be here. They're here because they want to be here. And now the interaction continues. So that's a whole side of the business that I took for granted, always operating in a public insurance market, until I met some of the people in the performance groups. It's like, oh man, I couldn't even imagine that whole other side of the business. So that's definitely what I would perceive as one of the benefits. In terms of the downside, they don't have competition, right? They're not they're not competing against anybody to be better and want shops to deal with them. They don't have to compete for the public's buy-in. So there's a sense of complacency that comes with that too, right? Where they, the government run, so there's a lot of red tape. Things take a long time to change. So, if without getting into the whole political side of things, that's a whole other aspect that maybe other people like Joel don't see in the private market. So it's got its, my personal opinion, if I had to sum it down to a few words, which by the look on Lenny's face, it's about that time for me to do, is that it's I would say it ends up being pretty close to the same. There's good things, there's bad things. I could look over my shoulder and see greener grass on one side, and I can see a muddy field on the other. So appreciate what you have, lean into those things, and work with what's within your control.
Yep. Well said.
Well said, Norm. Yeah.
Well said.
Yeah, you pretty much nailed it. I think I would echo your take on the sort of positives and negatives. I think that even the lack of direction of work, I mean, they do sort of make you play the DRP thing as well. Technically they're not directing work, but they definitely are directing work away from businesses that don't fall under their accreditation programs. So there is some control that they maintain there, and under those accreditation programs are rate agreements and surcharging agreements and like gazillion other things that go along with that. So there's like positive and negative things on their own right there. They highly discourage people from choosing an independent, unaccredited shop, which could be a high performing shop or could be a backyard shop. It could be either way. We find in our market that if it's written in a repair instruction, they will compensate you for it 99.9% of the time, and they will compensate you fairly for doing it if it's written. There is times when their policies are written to include this or disclude that to try and they're trying to mitigate their financial exposure. But when in our experience, when it comes to doing a safe repair, they will more often than not cover the cost of it, but they don't do any work to promote or a shop that is, say, performing at that high level. They will promote shops that meet some other metric that doesn't really mean anything about the quality of the repair. It's all about the financial piece, or how nice they play with the insurance company in that way. So I personally, I like it. I definitely, I see the things that Joel deals with in a market with so many insurers and so many rule books, and I'm assuming, Michael, that yours is very similar. I feel like I'm the grass isn't greener. The grass is definitely different, as Norm said. It's just a different challenge to
The
deal with.
field is that field adjuster still common in Canada, or is it virtual?
Different virtual oversight for us. And highly inexperienced in many cases, depending on the department you're dealing with. But very
Yeah,
Norm, you may have a
we
different
have
experience in that. I should let you.
we have
Yeah. No, I was just going to comment two things. One, coming back from that spring conference in Saskatchewan, where SGI spoke to the shops there, and they flat out said, don't order parts, don't do anything from our estimate. That's triage. That's trying to keep potential total losses or total losses out of your yard, out of your way. Do not use that sheet to start the repair process. So it was interesting. We think it, but it was interesting to hear it said in the room like that.
I really admire
So
that they
that was,
admitted that, and that the language, whether the words were exactly the same, but used for triage and used for gauging repairability. That street sheet. That's actually that's really cool of them. I like that.
yeah, and they use that word triage. So I thought that was pretty interesting. Before I thought of that, what I was going to ask Joel maybe is for guys like Todd and I who are in the public market. From your understanding of how things work in the States, would you say that the private insurance market in Canada and the private insurance market in the States, like, do they operate like, what are they, 90% similar, 95, 98, 80?
I would say so. Yeah, very very very
Okay.
similar. Yeah, there's DRPs, there's non-DRPs, there's your backyard shops, there's your MSOs. Yeah, everything would be pretty much identical.
You have a guess as far as the percentage of shops in Canada that are manufacturer certified?
Yeah, I don't know the numbers either. Yeah, that was another podcast we did.
Yeah.
And yeah, I personally not too fond of those certifications as a shop that strives to do all those things, regardless of having the stamp from the OEM.
Yeah.
And certainly don't think that we should have to pay for that. I think if anything, we should get paid for that. I mean, we're preserving their brand.
I agree with Norm.
You know what I mean? So that's a whole other conversation. I used to be OEM certified and I dropped it. I have all of the requirements. Those check sheets is an internal audit that I run myself and just make sure that I'm keeping up with the certification required. So it's not, I refer to us as not OEM certified, but OEM qualified. And I hope that trend takes off because it's just another subscription that we have to pay for.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I
I
like
definitely
that.
know that routine.
Yeah. Good stuff, guys. Hey, we're out of time for this one, and I would hope that as we get this out to the masses and perhaps people watch it, they have more questions or insights, things that they want us to talk about. But big thanks to Norm, Todd, and Joel for making time today, and of course Michael to being
Thanks,
on
Michael.
today's podcast. Yeah.
Thank all of you.
Feel like we
Well-
could have 4 or 5 of these with you. I'm not sure you got the time for
I
that.
was
yeah.
just
Yeah.
thinking that. Yeah.
Let's
This
go.
is actually really energizing for me. And man,
Yeah.
you could just about 4 or 5 of these, and
Gets me fired
really
up.
start to fix something, right?
Yeah. We
There
should do
there
it. We
lies
should do.
then. Go ahead, Norm.
I was just going to say we should do it live next time and have people call in from the States
sure.
and Canada.
I think again, what I'd like everyone listening moving forward is just drop that comment. Please is the easiest. Obviously, we have a series of podcasts we've covered that all showed up as separate topics in this one. But Michael, same for you, and we always invite anyone listening to that. They can get a hold of me or any one of us if they have something sort of question. You're a shop owner and you're like, I heard them say something, but I want to know more. We got to get off our islands. We got to
Yeah.
start. We got to continue to talk. We got to find connections. There is a person out there willing to talk, share, and learn as well. So, if you're a shop owner or even a business owner for that matter, don't keep your head down in the sand. You're not alone. Step up, rise up, and there's lots of help resources out there. So that's it, guys. Appreciate your time.
Good to see you all.
Excellent. Thanks, everybody. Yeah, you too.
Thank you.
Take
Thanks,
care.
Michael.
Yeah. Bye bye.
Bye.
Yeah. Bye bye.